Through many births, I have wandered on and on, searching for, but never finding, the builder of this house.
I am standing on the threshold about to enter a room. It is a complicated business. In the first place, I must shove against an atmosphere pressing with a force of 14 pounds on every square inch of my body. I must make sure of
Yes, Glassdoor is trying to say you would be good for a job there.
Sun.
Obviously, there are no other
Fraction of a
judgments
second
they're
too
making.
late, the plank would be miles away. I must do this whilst hanging from a round planet head outward into space and with a wind of ether blowing at no one knows how many miles a second through every interstice of my body. The plank has no solidity of substance.
Judgy.
To step on it is like stepping on a swarm of flies. Shall I not slip through?
I don't
No.
really use my LinkedIn
If I make
anymore.
the venture, one of the flies
definitely
hits me
could,
and gives me a
but
boost up again. I fall
mostly
again,
it's just
and
there
I'm
as
knocked
a
upwards by another fly.
documentation of my resume after
I may
I've already
hope
applied to
that
a bunch
the
of
net
places.
result will be that I remain about steady.
Just because I really hate getting headhunted.
Fortunately, I should slip through the floor or be boosted too violently up to the ceiling. The occurrence would be not a violation of the laws of nature, but a rare coincidence.
These are some of the minor
These are some of the
difficulties.
minor difficulties. I ought really
That's
to look
fair.
at the problem four-dimensionally as concerning the intersection of my world.
I guess for my sake, I usually have a pretty clear idea of what I want to
again,
do. And
it
once
is
I know what I
necessary to
want to do, there's
determine
only
in
so
which
many places that will
direction
do it,
the
and I
entropy
can
of
just
the world is
apply to them.
increasing in order
Like,
to
there
make
aren't
sure
that many
my
companies.
passage of
If
the
I wanted to
threshold is an
find,
entrance,
I guess I
not
might
an
use
exit.
LinkedIn. If I really want to find, like, just anything
Very.
gaming related,
It is
that would be a
easier
good place for
a camel
LinkedIn.
to pass through the eye of a needle than for a scientific man to pass through a door. And whether the door be barn door or
okay.
church door, it might be wiser that he should consent to be an ordinary man and walk in, rather than wait till all the difficulties involved in a really scientific ingress are resolved. Arthur Eddington, 1927.
Of all the communities available to us, there's not one I would want to devote myself to, except for the Society of True Searchers, which has very few living members at any time. Albert Einstein, 1924.
The physicist Wolfgang Pauli once spoke of two limiting conceptions.
Not having all the
both of
answers is a
which
great
have
reason to
been
not make a decision.
extraordinarily fruitful in the history of human thought.
You should make an
although
informed
no
decision,
genuine
and
reality
other than that,
corresponds to them.
there isn't actually a
At
huge
one
time limit on it.
extreme is the idea of an objective world, pursuing its regular course in space and time.
I don't know why you're not happy to
independently
talk
of
about
any
that.
kind of observing
Perfectly
subject.
legitimate excuse.
This has been the guiding image of modern science. At the other extreme is the idea of a subject, mystically experiencing the unity of the world,
like you
and
failed.
no longer
No.
confronted by an object or by
Gee.
any objective world.
It's only your
This
fault if you
has been the guiding
intentionally
image of
didn't make a
Asian
decision
mysticism.
despite having all the resources.
Our thinking moves somewhere in the middle, between these two limiting conceptions.
You must have run into this
We
enough
should
at your
maintain
job.
the
Things
tension
happen,
resulting from
A
these
lot.
two opposites.
and they are not your fault.
Werner Heisenberg, 1974.
It is a great adventure to contemplate the universe beyond man. To contemplate what it could be
Sure,
like
feel
without
bad
man,
about them. That's
as it
okay.
was in a great
But
part
you
of
have to
human
separate
history
your
and as it
gut
is in a
feeling,
great
your id,
majority
from
of
your
places.
conscious feeling, your superego.
When this objective view is finally attained, and the mystery and majesty of matter are fully appreciated, to then turn the objective eye back on man, viewed as matter, to view life
Sounds
as
annoying.
part of
Yeah,
this
it requires this
universal
thing called
mystery of the
metacognition,
greatest depth,
which I know is
is to
really, really
sense an
scary.
experience which is very rare and very exciting. It usually ends in laughter and a delight in the futility of trying to understand what this atom in the universe is. This thing, atoms with curiosity, that looks at itself and wonders why it wonders. Well, the scientific views end in awe and mystery, lost at the edge in uncertainty.
This is the
But
only
they
audio log
appear to
that
be
uses the word
so deep
awe.
and so impressive that the theory that it is all arranged
word.
as a stage for God
That has been
to
ruined
watch
for
man
me,
struggle for good and evil
Unfortunately.
seems inadequate. Some will tell me that I have just described a religious experience.
Wait, why are
Very
you working on
well,
art for
may
someone who
call it
you
what
don't
you
like?
will. Then, in that language, I would say
The
that
word
the
has been
young
ruined, not the
man's
concept. The
religious
concept's fine.
experience is of such a kind that he finds the religion of his church inadequate to describe, to encompass that kind of experience. The God of the church isn't big enough. Richard Feynman, 1963.
Yeah, I've heard Moriarty say it too many damn times.
Oh, my God. How does it happen in this poor old world? That thou art so great, and yet nobody finds thee. That thou callest so loudly, and nobody hears thee. That thou
Okay.
art so near,
Well, as long
and
as you are
nobody
getting joy
feels
out of it.
thee. That thou givest thyself to everybody, and nobody knows thy name. Men flee from thee and say they cannot find thee. They turn their backs and say they cannot see thee. They stop their ears and say they cannot hear thee. Hans Dank, circa 1520. Imagine if all the tumult of the body
Oh
were
yeah,
to
no,
quiet down,
there's a very spiteful
along with all our
enjoyment
busy
of
thoughts
doing
about
something nice for
this
someone who's being a dick to you.
affair.
Because you
If
get
the
to
very
take the
world
moral
should
high
stop,
ground. It's a very
and the
strong
mind
feeling.
cease thinking about itself, go beyond itself.
I don't
and be
disagree
quite
with you
still.
there. But
If all
I
the
find that I get
fantasies that appear
more
in dreams and
positive
imagination should
long-term
cease,
feelings
and there be no
by helping
speech,
people who
no sign.
appreciate it and
Imagine if
give
all
me
things
positive
that are
feedback.
perishable grew still. For if we listen, they are saying, we did not make ourselves.
I will always
made
take your
us
art
who
and enjoy
abides
it and
forever.
compliment you for it. It
Imagine
is
then
always beautiful.
that they should say this and fall silent, listening to the very voice of him who made them, and not to that of his creation, so that we should hear not his word through the tongues of men, nor the voice of angels, nor the clouds' thunder, nor any symbol, but his very self, which in these things we love, and go beyond ourselves to attain a flash of that eternal wisdom which abides above all things. And imagine if that moment were to go on and on, leaving behind all other sights and sounds but this one vision, which ravishes and absorbs and fixes the beholder in joy, so that the rest of eternal life were like that moment of illumination which leaves us breathless. Would this not be what is bidden in Scripture? Enter thou into the joy of thy
Is
Lord.
money from friends somehow less valuable than money from
Augustine of
people who
Hippo,
you don't like?
circa 400. Your question is the most difficult in the world. It is not a question I can answer simply
Yeah, but
with
see, we
yes
like
or
your
no.
art, so we're
I am
willing
not
to
an
pay you for it.
atheist.
That's how that works.
I do not know if I can define myself as a pantheist. The problem involved is too vast for our limited minds.
Oh, she's not paying you either? Oh,
May I
good.
not reply with
So,
vigor?
you're not going to get any
The
joy out of
human
submitting
mind,
it because she'll be
No
mad at
matter
you.
how highly trained, cannot grasp.
And you're not getting money
universe.
for it. So all you're getting
We are
is
in the
spite.
position of a little child entering
This sounds
a
healthy.
huge library filled with books in many languages. The child knows someone must have written these books.
Yeah,
Does not
spite.
know how. Does not understand the languages in which they are written. The child dimly suspects a mysterious order in the arrangement of the books.
The
but
ability to say,
doesn't
I'm
know
better
what
than
that
you.
is. That, it seems to me, is the attitude of the most intelligent human toward God. Albert Einstein,
They can suck on his art.
1930.
I don't think you actually want that.
The concept of a clock enfolds all succession in time. In the concept, the 6th hour is not earlier than the 7th or 8th, although the clock never strikes the hour, save when the concept biddeth.
Yeah,
Nicholas of Cusa, 1450.
I hear pixels don't taste very good.
The concept of a clock enfolds all succession in time. In the concept, the 6th hour is not earlier than the 7th or 8th, although the clock never strikes the
How much
hour,
ramen do you eat?
save when the concept biddeth. Nicholas of Cusa, 1450.
That's mine, you know.
Yeah. Well, I have some ideas about it, and I just wanted to give it a try. See how it goes?
I was asking more for a frequency, but I'll take an average too.
What kind of ideas?
I don't know.
I can do the math.
Subconscious drives, right? Like, with anything creative.
Did you feel this way before your trip to the island, or after?
Well, I think after. Yeah, mostly after. I had a seed of it before, even back when I first heard the piece,
Okay.
when you first picked it out. But I didn't really notice then. Now it's like the princess and the pea. I don't mean to be stepping on your toes, though. The drive is personal. I wanted to record this one so I can hear it the way I want to hear it. Just to set something right for myself.
Want fancy ramen? The hell is fancy
I'm
ramen?
going to file this into the category of good problems to have. Your attitude to the piece changed or clarified, I guess, maybe based on the trip. That means it's working. Something's working, right? Maybe. Back when we started, I would have counted us lucky to ever get this far.
Here we are.
Comes with oh, okay. So it's the number and quality of
away.
mix-ins. I see.
And I will take my leave, thanking you for this opportunity to introspect on my aversive feelings.
You're welcome.
But like the noodles are basically the same.
We join spokes together in a wheel, but it is the center
Okay.
hole that
What
makes
differentiates
the
the
wagon
quality
move.
of the noodles then?
We shape clay into a pot, but it is the emptiness inside that holds whatever we want. We hammer wood
Let's
for
go left
hours,
side, but it really doesn't
but it is
matter.
the inner space that makes it livable.
Oh, no, I guess I can do this.
We work with being, but non-being is what we use.
Chewier
Now
because
see,
they're fried in
6th
oil.
century
Okay,
BC.
I see.
There is nothing in existence but veils hung down. Acts of perception attach themselves only to veils, which leave traces in the owner of the eye that perceives them. Bin Arabi 1231.
The glass is transparent, the wine transparent. The two are similar.
I'm gonna
I'm
have to
very
wait till I'm not
confused.
in a high tension part of this run to
There
understand what
seems
the hell
to
you're
be
talking
wine
about.
and no glass. Or glass and no wine. Sahib bin Abad, circa 990.
There's a lot of really short audio logs that happen
If
really quickly
we were
here.
not able, did not desire to look in any new direction.
Oh yeah, and I ran out of time
If
here.
we did not
and I'm
have
going to
a
again.
doubt or recognize ignorance,
Hmm.
we would not get any new ideas. There would be nothing worth checking because we would know what is true. So what we call scientific knowledge today is a body of statements of varying degrees of certainty. Some of them are most unsure, some of them are nearly sure, but none is absolutely certain. Scientists are used to this. We know that it is consistent to be able to live and not know. Some people say, how can you live without knowing? I do not know what they mean. I always live without knowing. That is easy. How you get to know is what I want to know. This freedom to doubt is an important matter in the sciences, and I believe in other fields. It was born of a struggle. It was a struggle to be permitted to doubt, to be unsure. And I do not want us to forget the importance of the struggle, and by default, to
I
let the
think
thing
this
fall
is the
away.
wrong way to even get there, but whatever.
I feel a responsibility as a scientist who knows the great value of a satisfactory philosophy of ignorance, and the progress made possible by such a philosophy. Progress which is the fruit of freedom of thought. I feel a responsibility to proclaim the value of this freedom and to teach that doubt is not to be feared, but that it is to be welcomed as the possibility of a new potential for human beings. If you know that you are
Now
not
we're in the
sure,
right place.
you have a chance to improve the situation.
Everything's fine.
I want to demand this freedom for future generations.
We're
Richard
not losing
Feynman,
2 minutes. What are you talking about?
1963.
the audio log just gets very quiet. And the subtitles go away. It's a bug, clearly. It's gonna be hard for them to fix things that aren't old versions of the game.
As scientists, we realize that color is merely a question of the wavelengths of ethereal vibrations.
I guess.
But that does
you
not
were
seem to have
probably
dispelled the feeling that eyes which reflect light near wavelength 4800 are a subject for rhapsody, whilst those which reflect wavelength 5300 are left unsung. We have not yet reached the practice of the Laputans who, if they would, for example, praise the beauty of a woman or any other animal, they describe it by rhombs, circles, parallelograms, ellipses, and other geometrical terms. The materialist who is convinced that all phenomena arise from electrons and quanta and the like, controlled by mathematical
Don't
formulae,
squeeze Mr.
must
Kappa.
presumably hold the belief
doesn't deserve
that his
it.
wife is a rather elaborate differential equation. But he is probably tactful enough not to obtrude this opinion in domestic life. If this kind of scientific dissection is felt to be inadequate and irrelevant in ordinary personal relationships, it is surely out of place in the most personal relationship of all, that of the human soul
I
to
think
a
I
divine
don't have
spirit.
this much free time.
Arthur Eddington,
I sure don't.
1927.
So I guess we're just standing around like an idiot. Cool. Cool. Okay. Whatever.
One day I happened to be occupied with the subject of generation of waves by wind. I took down the standard treatise on hydrodynamics, and under that heading I read, if the external forces P prime sub YY, P prime sub XY be given multiples of e to the ikx plus at, where k and a are prescribed, the equations in question determine a and c, and thence, by 9, the value of eta. And so on for 2 pages. At the end, it is made clear that a wind of less than half a mile an hour will leave the surface unruffled. At a mile an hour, the surface is covered with minute corrugations due to capillary waves which decay immediately if the disturbing cause ceases. At 2 miles,
I'm not getting this obelisk. I don't need to
as
do
the
these.
author modestly concludes, our theoretical investigations give considerable insight
I'm trying
into
to
the
push
incipient stages
more
of wave
aggressively for
formation.
actually hitting 3
On
obelisks,
another occasion,
which
the
I think
same
is more
subject of
interesting
generation
than
of
hitting
waves by wind was in my mind.
XEPs.
But this time, another book was more appropriate.
So I'm gonna try and hit the
There are
the
waters
panels
blown by
that I'm
changing
missing, given that
winds
I was
to
out of
north
time here.
and lit by the rich skies all day.
Like, not
And
that out
after,
of time. This is
frost,
where I thought I was
with
going
a gesture,
originally.
stays the waves that dance and wandering
Some
loveliness.
cat ears.
He leaves
I can
a
give
white,
you one that gives
unbroken
him
glow,
cat ears
a
if you
gathered
want.
radiance,
Like,
a width,
if there's something
a
you want
shining
as an emote,
peace
I can
under
just
the
make
night.
it.
The magic words bring back the scene. Again, we feel nature drawing close to us, uniting
Just
with us.
give me a pair of cat
till we
ears
are
to use for
filled with
reference.
the gladness of the waves dancing in the sunshine.
Feel free to take a
with the
picture of
awe
your
the
cat from
moonlight
an
on the
appropriate
frozen
angle.
lake. These were not moments when we fell below ourselves.
Bunny ears? Sure,
We did
I'll
not
do
look
those
back
too.
on them and say, it was disgraceful for a man with 6 sober senses and a scientific understanding to let
Like,
himself be
if
deluded in
literally
that
just
way.
modding the
I
emote
will
is
take
very
Lamb's
not hard. I can
hydrodynamics
just
with me
put it
next
into
time.
the
It is good
emote thing.
that there should be
Into
some
FNC.
significance. Life would be stunted and narrow if we could feel no significance in the world around us beyond that which can be measured with the tools of the physicist or described by the metrical symbols of the mathematician. Of course, it was an illusion. We can easily expose the rather clumsy trick that was played on us. Ethereal vibrations of various wavelengths, reflected at different angles,
Pushing
from
my
the
wrist
disturbed
down,
interface
which is
between
not good
air
for
and
me.
water, reached our eyes, and by photoelectric action, caused appropriate stimuli to travel along
Sure,
the optic
whatever
nerves
you
to a
want.
brain center. Here, the mind
Modding
set to
emotes
work
is
to
very
weave
not
an
hard.
impression out of the stimuli. The incoming material was somewhat meager, but the mind is a great storehouse of associations that could be used to clothe the skeleton. Having woven an
Such a
impression,
weird metaphor.
the mind surveyed all that it
Storehouse
had made
with which you
and
clothe a
decided that it was
skeleton.
very good. The critical faculty was low. We ceased to analyze and were conscious only of the impression as a whole. The warmth of the air, the scent of the grass, the gentle stir of the breeze, combined with the visual scene in one transcendent impression around us and within us.
I don't know, I reserve the right to leech the color out of it.
Associations emerging from their storehouse
It is a
of
good
emotion.
emote, really, because it is
Perhaps you
grayscale.
recall the phrase rippling laughter. Waves, ripples, laughter, gladness. The ideas jostle one another. Quite illogically, glad. Though what there can possibly be to be glad about in a set of ethereal vibrations no sensible person can explain. A mood of quiet joy suffused
Oh.
their impression.
No, that is a mistake, right? Aren't the two, Williamson, are the two Jungle Sky EPs on the obelisk?
That's how it was. It was an illusion. Then why toy with it longer? These airy fancies which the mind, when we do not keep it severely in
On the
order,
mountain obelisk,
projects into
not
the
the
external
monastery one.
world, should be of no concern to the earnest seeker after truth.
I'm going for
Get
3
back to the
obelisks.
solid substance,
Quarry, Treehouse,
to the material
Mountain.
of the water moving under the pressure of the wind and the force
On
of
those two, I
gravitation,
think are on the other
obedience to
obelisk.
the laws of
I think they're weird.
hydrodynamics. But the solid substance of things is another illusion. It too is a fancy projected by the mind into the external world. We have chased the solid substance from the continuous liquid to the atom, from the atom to the electron, and there we have lost it. But at least it will be said, we have reached something real at the end of the chase, protons and electrons. Or, if the new quantum theory condemns these images as too concrete and leaves us with no coherent images at all, at least we have symbolic coordinates and momenta and Hamiltonian functions, devoting themselves with single-minded purpose to ensuring that QP minus PQ shall be equal to IH over 2 pi. I have tried to show that by following this
Okay.
course we reach
So I do have to do those two, but I don't have to do
which,
anything
by
else.
nature,
Okay.
can only be a partial
Interesting.
expression of our environment. It is not reality, but the skeleton of reality. Actuality
fine.
has been lost into exigencies.
I'll
of
have
chase.
time to do those. They're not that
Having
big of a
first
deal.
rejected
And
the
they aren't
minds
out of the
work
way,
of
which is
illusion,
also nice. Like,
we
they're
have, in
basically
the
on the
end,
walking path
to
anyways.
return to the mind and say, here are worlds well and truly built on a basis more secure than your fanciful illusions. But there is nothing to make any one of them an actual world. Please choose one and weave your fanciful images into it. That alone can make it actual. We have torn away the mental fancies to get at the reality beneath, only to find that the reality of that which is beneath is bound up with its potentiality of awakening these fancies. It is because the mind, the weaver of illusion, is also the only guarantor of reality, that reality is always to be sought at the base of illusion. Illusion is to reality as the smoke to the fire.
Okay, this works.
I will not urge that hoary untruth, there is no smoke without fire.
Needs the art
But it
for...
is
Oh,
reasonable to inquire whether,
I see.
in the mystical illusions
It's not
of
totally
man,
selfless.
there is not a reflection of
Just
an
make sure you put a
underlying reality.
watermark on them. It'll be fine.
Arthur Eddington, 1927.
Or you could even just sign them. Like,
What
watermarking is
divine
not
in
quite what I
man
mean.
is elusive and impalpable.
But yeah, like actually signing your
and
work is a
he is
very normal
easily
thing for
tempted to
artists
embody
do.
it in a concrete form.
It's a lot more professional
Church,
than
country,
putting
a social system, a leader,
transparent
so that he
watermark
may
on
realize
something.
it with less effort, serve it. Yet, the attempt to externalize the kingdom of heaven in temporal shape must end a disaster. It cannot be created by charters or constitutions, nor established by arms. Those who seek for it alone will reach it together. and those who seek it in company will perish by themselves. Hugh Kingsmill, 1944.
66 times have these eyes beheld the changing scene of autumn. I have said enough about moonlight. Ask no more. Only listen to the voice of pines and cedars when no wind stirs. Leonin, 1711.
In the traditional view, a person is free.
Okay, so I'm actually going to change the route
He is
here a little bit.
autonomous in the sense that his behavior is uncaused.
On the
view,
assumption that I'm coming
together
back
with
later.
its associated practices,
I
must
think
be
I am.
re-examined when a scientific analysis reveals unexpected controlling relations between behavior and environment. By questioning the control exercised by autonomous man and demonstrating the control exercised by the environment, a science of behavior also seems to question dignity or worth. A person is responsible for his behavior, not only in the sense that he may be justly blamed or punished when he behaves badly, but also in the sense that he is to be given credit and admired for his achievements. A scientific analysis shifts the credit as well as the blame to the environment, and traditional practices can then no longer be justified. These are sweeping changes, and those who are committed to traditional theories and practices naturally resist them.
Also, sorry, Chi,
As
this
the
is going to
emphasis
put
shifts to the environment, the
Squishy
individual seems
back
to
in the
be
run.
exposed to a new kind of danger.
I think.
Who is to construct the controlling environment, and to what end? Autonomous man presumably controls himself in accordance with a built-in set of values. He works for what he finds good. But what will the putative
It's very,
controller
very short,
find
Squishy.
good? And will it be good for those he controls? Answers to questions of this sort are said, of course, to call for value judgments. B.F. Skinner, 1971.
I boasted among men that I had known you. They see your pictures in all works of mine. They come and ask me, who is he? I know not how to answer them. I say, indeed, I cannot tell. They blame me, and they go away in scorn. And you sit there, smiling. I put my tales of you into
So the thing is,
songs.
as long as I get one of the
Secret
two keep panels,
gushes
the
out
laser
from my
turns on.
heart.
So
They
I can
come and
just
ask
do
me,
that.
Tell me all your meanings.
Head over here.
I know not how to answer them. I say, who knows what they mean? They smile and go away in utter scorn. And you sit there smiling.
Oh, I could even move.
Rabindranath Tagore, 1910.
I could probably move closer to this log.
If a man, holding a belief which he was taught
Might
in
help
childhood
to
or
make this segment
persuaded of
faster. I'm not
afterwards,
sure.
keeps down and pushes away any doubts which arise
Nah,
about
this
it in
segment's
his
probably
mind,
still as tight. I could get the
purposely
discard though. That
avoids
would be the other
reading
thing
of
to do.
books in the company of men that call into question or discuss it, and regards as impious those questions which cannot easily be asked without
I'm
disturbing.
gonna lose a little bit of time
The
on
life
the
of
next
that
segment.
man is one sin against mankind. But, says one, I am a busy man. I have no time for the long course of study which would be necessary to make me in any degree a competent judge of certain questions, or even able to understand the nature of the arguments. Then he should have no time to believe. William K. Clifford, 1874. A shipowner was about to send to
Why they
sea
break
an
bottles
emigrant
on
ship.
your I guess.
He knew that she was old,
I don't
and
think
not well
so.
built at the first, that she had seen many
Wait.
seas and climes, and often had needed repairs. Doubts had been suggested to him that possibly she was not seaworthy. These doubts preyed upon his mind and made him unhappy. He thought that perhaps he ought to have her thoroughly overhauled and refitted, even though this should put him at great expense. Before the ship sailed, however, he succeeded in overcoming these melancholy reflections. He said to himself that she had gone safely through so many voyages and weathered so many storms that it was idle to suppose she would not come safely home from this trip also. he would put his trust in Providence, which could hardly fail to protect all these unhappy families that were leaving their fatherland to seek for better times elsewhere. He would dismiss from his mind all ungenerous suspicions about the honesty of builders and contractors. In such ways, he acquired a sincere and comfortable conviction that his vessel was thoroughly safe and seaworthy.
So I
He
shouldn't
watched
use
her
tutorial
departure
8
with a light
anymore.
heart and benevolent wishes for the success of the exiles in their strange new home that was to be. And he got his
Okay, this
insurance
is
money
aggressively
when she
slow.
went down in mid-ocean.
But that's
and
fine.
told no
So I should just
tales.
have to do 5 follows.
What
A
shall
lot
we
faster.
say of him? Surely this, that he was verily guilty of the death of those families. It is admitted that he did sincerely believe in the soundness of his ship, but the sincerity of his conviction can in no wise help him, because he had no right
Boy.
to believe on
Boy.
such evidence as was before him. He had acquired his belief not by honestly earning it in patient investigation, but by stifling his doubts. And although in the end he may have felt so sure about it that he could not think otherwise, yet inasmuch as he had knowingly and willingly worked himself into that frame of mind, he must be held responsible for it. William K. Clifford, 1874.
I lost time there because my
In a
couch
sense,
GPU was slow.
what modern physics is to the history of Western thought, Zen is to the development of the Eastern worldview, the ultimate refinement of more than 2,000 years of incisive debate, discussion, and critical development. Yet the difference between the two could hardly be more marked. Whereas physics is interested above all in theories, concepts, and formulas, Zen values only the concrete and the
Still
simple.
taking the wrong
Zen
walk
wants
here right now.
facts, not in the Western sense of things that are measurable and numerical, which are in fact abstractions, but as living, immediate, and tangible. Its approach to understanding is not to theorize, because it recognizes that previously accumulated ideas and knowledge, in other words, memories of all kinds, block the direct perception of
So here's the
reality.
question. Is it actually
Therefore,
faster to do this?
Zen adopts an unusual approach.
Because if it is, it's also
Its
faster 100%.
build-up involves language, which is
Yeah, I think this is a
unavoidable.
time save for 100%.
Any method, even if it turns out to be an anti-method, has first to
So
convey
that's got to
some
be faster than
background
walking through
in
the
order
third
to be
maze.
effective.
Where am I going?
But the way Zen uses language is always to point beyond language.
Yep, that's
beyond
100% time save.
concepts to the concrete. David Darling, 1996.
Our hangnails are incredibly real to us.
I can't believe we didn't think of that.
Whereas to most of us,
Because we
the
don't have to go
English
through
village of
gate 4
Netherwallet
100%.
and the high Himalayan country of Bhutan, not to mention the slowly swirling spiral galaxy in Andromeda, are considerably less real. Even though
100%
our
time save.
intellectual selves might
All right,
wish to
well, I guess we're gonna
insist
modify
that
the
since
guides
the
this
latter
weekend.
are much bigger and longer lasting
If
than
you want to
our
make a note,
hangnails,
Williamson, in our
they ought
DMs.
therefore to be far realer to us than our hangnails are. We can say this to ourselves till we're blue in the face, but few of us act as if we really believed it. A slight slippage of subterranean stone that obliterates 20,000 people in some far off
I don't
land.
have to do that. That's on a different
The
obelisk.
ceaseless plundering of virgin jungles in the Amazon basin. A swarm of helpless stars being swallowed up one after another
New
by a
pick.
ravenous black hole.
Yes.
Even
For
an
3.
ongoing
If you don't already
collision
have a pick
between
for
two
4, we should take
huge
one.
galaxies,
'Cause the
each
pick
of
for
which
4 is also from a
contains
different
100
angle.
billion stars. Such colossal events are so abstract to someone like me that they can't even touch the sense of urgency and importance, and thus the reality of some measly little hangnail on my left hand's pinky. We are all egocentric, and what is realist to each of us in the end is ourself. The realest things of all are my knee, my nose,
believe
my
I didn't think of
anger,
that.
my hunger, my
So
toothache, my
mad.
side ache, my sadness,
That
my
route's
joy,
been in the
my
game
love
for
math,
forever.
my abstraction ceiling, and so forth.
I didn't even. Well, I don't know if I
What
found
all
that
these
time
things
save
have in
actually. I
common,
might have.
what
And
binds
I don't
them
remember
together
exactly what happened in the
is
early days of
concept
100%.
mind, which comes out of
A
the
lot of
concept
very
I,
dumb
me,
routes
and therefore,
were in the early days of
although it is less
100%. I'm not
concrete
supposed to do
than
that,
a
EP.
nose or even a toothache. This I thing is what ultimately seems to each of us to constitute the most solid rock of undeniability of all. Could it possibly be an illusion? Or if not a total illusion, could it possibly be less real and less solid than we think it is? Could an eye be more like an elusive, receding,
Keyboard is going
shimmering
crazy.
rainbow
I'm sorry.
than like a
Please give us
tangible,
some,
heftable,
anti-crazy
transportable
meds.
pot of gold? Douglas Hofstadter, 2007.
I maintain that the cosmic
care.
religious feeling is
You can
the
delete messages,
strongest
you know
and
that, right?
noblest motive for scientific research. Only those who realize the immense efforts and, above all, the devotion without which pioneer work in theoretical science cannot be achieved are able to grasp the strength of the emotion out of which alone such work,
Like, I'm not gonna
as
look
it is
before
from the
stream is over,
immediate
so you can
realities of life,
polish whatever your
can
messages
issue.
are as much as you like.
What
Yes,
a
you
deep
can delete.
conviction of
Oh,
the
not
rationality of the universe.
not messages in Twitch,
Understand,
messages in Discord.
Were it but a feeble reflection of the mind revealed in this world, Kepler and Newton must have had to enable them to spend
I should have
years of
figured
solitary labor
about what I
in
meant.
disentangling the principles of celestial mechanics. Those whose acquaintance with scientific research is derived chiefly from its practical results easily develop a completely false notion of the mentality of the men who, surrounded by a skeptical world,
I guess I didn't know what random emotes you were talking about.
scattered wide through the world and through the centuries. Only one who has devoted his life to similar ends can have a vivid realization of what has inspired these men and given them the strength to remain
I think
true
it's
to
left
their
side of the palm
purpose,
trees.
in spite of countless failures.
Sort of.
It is cosmic religious
Specifically because
feeling
on
that
this
gives man
patch you
such
lose
strength.
time going up and down hills.
A contemporary
wanna hug
has said,
the-
not unjustly, that in this materialistic
okay.
age of ours, the serious scientific workers are the only profoundly religious people. Albert Einstein, 1930.
Formerly, you appeared to me, O Lord, as invisible by every creature because you are a hidden, infinite God. Infinity, however,
Ah,
is incomprehensible by every means of comprehending. Later, you appeared to me as visible by all. For a thing exists only as you see it, and it would not actually exist unless it saw you. For your vision confers being, since your vision is your essence. Thus, my God, you are equally invisible and visible. As you are invisible. As the creature is, which exists only insofar as the creature sees you, you are visible.
I feel like I'm
You,
very out of
therefore,
time.
my invisible God, are
I
seen by
never remember
all,
how this audio log
and in
ends.
all sight you are seen by everyone who sees. You who are invisible, who are both absolute from everything visible and infinitely super exalted, are seen in every visible thing and in every act of vision. Therefore, I must leap across this wall of invisible vision to where you are to be found. But this wall is both everything and nothing. For you, who confront as if you were both all things and nothing at all, dwell inside that high wall which no natural ability can
think I can
scale by
finish
its
laser.
own power. Nicholas of Cusa,
yeah.
1453.
I just don't feel like I have that much more time here.
One nature, perfect and pervading, circulates in all natures. One reality, all comprehensive, contains within itself all realities. The one moon reflects itself wherever there is a sheet of water, and all the moons and the waters are embraced within the one moon. The absolute of all the Buddhas enters into my own being, and my own being is found in union with theirs. The inner light is beyond praise and blame. Like space, it knows no boundaries. Yet it is even here, within us, ever retaining its serenity and fullness. It is only when you hunt for it that you lose it. You cannot take hold of it, but equally you cannot get rid of it. And while you can do neither, it goes on, its own way. You remain silent, and it speaks. You speak, and it is done. The great gate of charity is wide open, with no obstacles before it. Youngcha Tashi, circa 700.
O Lord God, helper of those who seek you, I see you in the garden of paradise.
I really feel like there was a
But I do
moment I
not
could have
know
summoned
what I
this boat,
see,
but
because I
I
see
have a
nothing
whole bunch
visible.
of free time in this area in general.
I
so-
know this alone, that I know that I do not know what I see, and that I can never know. I do not know how to name you, because I do not know what you are. Should anyone tell me that you are named by this or that name, by the fact that one gives a name, I know that it is not your name. For the wall beyond which I see you is the limit of every mode of signification by names. Should anyone express any concept by which you could be conceived, I know that this concept is not a concept of you. For every concept finds its boundary at the wall of paradise. Should anyone express any likeness and say that you ought to be conceived according to it, I know in the same way that this is not a likeness of you. So too, if anyone, wishing to furnish the means by which you might be understood, should set forth an understanding of you, one
Boat is really
still
slow,
far
damn it.
removed from you. For the highest wall separates you from
One,
all these,
two,
and secludes you from everything that can be said or thought, because you are absolute from all the things that can fall within any concept. Nicholas of Cusa, 1453.
Suppose a boat is crossing a river, and another empty boat is about to collide with it. Even an irritable man would not lose his temper. But supposing there was someone in the second boat, then the occupant of the first would shout to him to keep clear, and if the other did not hear the first time, nor even when called 3 times, bad language would inevitably follow. In the
two,
first case,
3,
there was no anger.
4,
In the second, there
5,
was. Because in the first case, the boat was empty, and in the second, it was occupied. And so it is with man. If he could only roam empty through life, who would be able to injure him? Shuangzi, 4th century BC. We have 2 kinds of knowledge which I call symbolic and intimate. I do not know whether it would be correct to say that reasoning is only applicable to symbolic knowledge, but the more customary forms of reasoning.
The thing I want
are
to try
developed
here is
for
I want to try
symbolic
getting.
knowledge only. The intimate knowledge will not submit to codification.
I want
and
to try getting
analysis,
the
or
buoy EP
rather,
while
when we
I'm
attempt to analyze
doing the
it,
dumb
the intimacy
audio
is
log on the
lost
docks.
and replaced by symbolism. For an illustration, let us consider humor. I suppose that humor can be analyzed to some extent and the essential ingredients of the different kinds of wit classified. Suppose that we are offered an alleged joke. We subject it to scientific analysis as we would a chemical salt of
I've also
doubtful
lost like
nature,
2 minutes, which is
and
going to hurt my
perhaps
cloud
after
cycle.
careful consideration,
So I'm probably not
we
going
are
to hit it
able
this
to
time.
confirm that it really and truly is a joke.
We'll see.
Logically, suppose our next procedure would be to laugh. But it may certainly be predicted that as the result of this scrutiny, we shall have lost all inclination we ever had to laugh at it. It simply does not do to expose the workings of a joke. The classification concerns a symbolic knowledge of humor, which preserves all the characteristics of a joke except its laughableness. The real appreciation must come spontaneously.
You can also
Not
take advantage of not doing EPs and tutorial
I
to
think
probably
this is
finish
a not
Orchard.
unfair analogy for our mystical feeling for
Yeah,
nature.
because I can probably do
And I
some
would
of,
venture
some
even
of
to
the
apply it
docs
to our
tutorial
mystical
if I do it like
experience
that.
of thought. There are some to whom the sense of a divine presence irradiating the soul is one of the most obvious things of experience.
Nice.
In their view, A man without this sense is to be regarded as we regard a man without a sense of humor. The absence is a kind of mental deficiency. We may try to analyze the experience as we analyze humor and construct a theology, or it
I
may
think
be
we're
an
supposed to finish that,
atheistic
actually.
philosophy.
We'll see.
Let us not forget that the theology is symbolic knowledge, whereas the experience is intimate knowledge. And as laughter cannot be compelled by the scientific exposition of the structure of a joke, so a philosophic discussion of the attributes of God, or an impersonal substitute, is likely to miss the intimate response of the spirit, which is the central point of the religious experience.
Okay, so that was
Arthur
a
Eddington,
little bit too much.
1927. Lustily, I dipped my oars into the silent lake, and as I rose upon the stroke, my boat went heaving through the water like a swan. When, from behind that craggy steep, till then the horizon's bound, a huge peak, black and huge, as if with voluntary
Well, I
power
wanted to do a
instinct,
turnaround. Whoops.
upreared its head. I struck and struck again, and growing still in stature, the grim shape towered up between me and the stars. But after I had seen that spectacle, for many days my brain worked with a dim and undetermined sense of unknown modes of being. Or my thoughts, their hung darkness.
Okay, I think I could do buoy there.
Call it
But the
solitude
timing has to be good, and I have to remember to do the
or blank
overshoot.
desertion. William Wordsworth, 1888. God bade me behold the sea, and I saw the ships sinking and the planks floating. Then the planks too were submerged. And God said to me, those who voyage are not saved. And he said to me, those who, instead of voyaging,
So if you were to
cast
stand
themselves
still
into the sea,
where this
take
audio
the
log
risk.
is, it would actually be really interesting
And he
because you'd be
said to
staring
me,
at the shipwreck, right?
those who voyage and take no risk shall perish.
Like all the
and he
audio
said
logs
to
are
me,
super topical.
In taking the risk, there is a part of salvation. And the wave came and lifted those beneath it and overran the shore.
We right.
He said
I
to me,
could try it. The
surface
problem is
of the
that I
sea
don't
is
have a lot of
clean
spare
that
time
cannot
on
be
that
reached,
obelisk,
and the bottom is
or
a
on that audio
darkness
log,
impenetrable.
whereas I do on the audio
And
log
between
right
the two
there.
are great fishes,
And so if I spend a
which are
bunch
to
of
be
time
feared.
doing that, then I run the risk of running out of time.
Navari, circa 970. What?
I actually have a bunch of spare time here, even
When
though
we
it doesn't feel like I
choose
should.
silence, we choose to give up the reasons not to love, which are
Oh,
the reasons for
nice.
going to war, or
Nice.
continuing war,
Send help.
or separating, or being a
Okay,
victim,
we're doing this again.
or being right. In a moment of
Just ignore the fact
when we choose
that the
silence,
splitter
we
split like 10
choose to
times.
give up the reasons not to love, which are the reasons for going to war, or continuing
Everything is
war,
fine. Don't worry
or
about it.
separating, or being a victim, or being right. In a moment of silence,
Supposed to go right,
in a moment
then
of
right
no
here.
thought, no mind, we choose to give those up. This is what my teacher invited me to. Just choose silence. Don't even choose love. Choose silence.
Oh my god, are you
And
serious?
love is apparent.
Alright.
If we choose love, we already have an idea of what love is. But if you
This is
choose
why I make
silence,
route notes.
that is the end of ideas.
I don't get this
You are willing to have no
horrendously
idea,
confused.
to see what is present when there
I'm
is
staring
no
at the
idea.
splits and they're telling me to do
Past,
things,
present,
and they just are wrong.
future. No
Yeah.
idea of love,
Like I'm about to run out of
no
the end
idea
of
of
the audio log.
truth, no idea of you, no idea
You
of
just
me.
don't be upset about this.
Love is apparent.
Yeah, I definitely have time for this if I don't screw it up.
Gandhi,
Okay.
2009.
Because it sure sounded like you were complaining. Though I guess maybe happy little squid emote, or happy little ears emote, should have been a giveaway.
These hearts were woven of human joys and cares, washed marvelously with sorrow, swift mirth.
Whoa.
Years of giving kindness.
That was a thing
Dawn
you just
was
did, video
theirs.
game.
Sense
Please don't do that
and the
again.
colors of the earth. These had seen movement and heard music, known slumber and waking,
It's a happy cool.
loved, gone proudly friended, felt the quick stir of wonder, sat alone, touched flowers and furs.
So I
and
don't think
cheeks.
I have the time to actually finish all of tutorial anymore.
All this is ended.
That's my guess.
There are waters blown by changing winds to laughter, and lit by the rich skies all day. And after,
Miss a panel in the
Frost,
treehouse. I skipped a couple
with
of
a
panels in the
gesture,
treehouse because I will be coming back
stays the waves that
in the
dance
post game.
and wander.
Because as
in
long
the
as I have
wild.
11 lasers, I can start
He
going
loves
to
a
mountain
light,
and taking advantage of the audio
unbroken
logs there,
glory,
some of which are
a
very
gathered
long.
radiance, a width
And there's a couple of them that I
shining
can get early,
peace
which I'm very much
over
doing.
the night.
Yeah, this is a
Rupert
problem.
Brooke, 1914.
So I'm losing time here again. Okay.
Then the occupant of the first would shout to keep him clear. And
3
if
and
the
4
other did
far,
not
thank
hear
you.
it the first
Do you want to
time,
find the
or
lines
even
as
when
well?
called 3 times, bad language would
Or you can even just
inevitably
find the
follow.
coordinates from the solve locations. That'll work
In
too.
the first case, there was no anger. The second was.
So I left off a
Because in the
panel at
first
the end
case,
of 3 of the bridges. The 2 purples and the left orange.
So it is with man. If he could only roam empty through life, who would be able to injure him? Shrewd soul, 4th century BC. I don't know. I don't remember. Wait, what? No, it's not. It's normal for me. I never remember my dreams. If I try right when I wake up, I can
So like
just
I
barely
can't
remember
really snipe this
fragments.
here.
Later in the day, even 20 minutes later, those fragments are gone. Unless I write them down. And if I read them later, it's like, these are ramblings of a crazy person.
Yeah, but then how do we know there aren't any side effects? I mean, do you remember everything else about your life?
It's fine. I mean, we're just doing suppression, not lobotomies. I mean, everything is still there. In dreams, we often take on
I
personalities.
get to watch
that
Treehouse
are a
Laser
little
activate.
different.
If I have just the right
We forget
timing.
details of our waking life and remember fictions in their place. How does that happen? Well, we're just using the same pathways. It's fine. But really, how should I know if something's missing? If you forget a few random little things, how would you remember that you forgot? Nothing big is missing.
So I can't do anything from here.
Wait, who are you again?
Why did we let you go first?
First hasn't happened yet. I was just dipping my toes into the pool. A real
You're
first
sending agent
happens when
pictures and
someone
not me.
dives right in and gets to decide for themselves when they come out. Who's that gonna be? You? How long
No,
did
not
you
of
do
me,
it?
but to me.
It's scary.
It'll be fine. It's not scary. It'll be fun.
So fun you don't even
Yeah.
remember.
I can look at them later.
Okay, no. Shoo. I want to re-record this one before I go home.
Just convert them to ASCII
no
art and then
gizmo.
paste them in chat.
What? Because of the test?
Yes. Because of the test. Possibly.
I thought you didn't remember anything. Interesting.
Yeah. Have a good night. I'll see you tomorrow.
A poet once said, "The whole universe is in a glass of wine." We will probably never know in what sense he meant that. Poets do not write to be understood. But it is true that if we look at a glass of wine closely enough, we see the entire universe. There are the things of physics, the twisting liquid which evaporates depending on the wind and weather, the reflections in the glass.
Let's see if I have
And
enough time
our
to do
imagination adds the
this. I don't
atoms.
think I do.
The glass is a distillation of the Earth's rocks, and in its composition we see the secrets of the universe's age and the evolution of stars. What strange array of chemicals are in the wine? How did they come to be? There are the ferments, the enzymes,
Okay,
the
so I could do that there
substrates,
if I had to.
and the products.
Wouldn't be fun.
There in wine is found the great generalization. All life is fermentation. Nobody can discover the chemistry of wine without discovering, as did Louis Pasteur, the cause of much disease. How vivid is the claret, pressing its existence into the consciousness that watches it. If our
Give
small
bridge,
minds,
please.
for some convenience,
Give
divide
now.
this glass of wine, this universe, into parts, physics,
So I've missed
biology,
the
geology,
clock cycle.
astronomy,
That's okay.
psychology, and so on, remember that nature does not know it. So let us put it all back together.
Okay,
Not
yeah.
forgetting ultimately what
Yep,
it is for.
yep.
Let it give us one more final pleasure. Drink it and forget it all. Richard Feynman.
I need to go to the
1968.
rotating bridge before I go underwater, and as much as that sucks, I'm going to need to somehow find time to do that. Ah. Honk. It just doesn't feel like it should work, because I felt like I ran out of time. But I guess if I didn't do, like, the forward and backward bridge bit, maybe it would be possible. Oh, how nice. Well, she's a lot more likely to mention that you did the art then.
The most beautiful experience we can have is the mysterious. It
I'm
is
not
the
saving these
fundamental
splits.
emotion
I'm
that
just gonna add
stands
some
at the
notes to
cradle
it.
of true
Put notes to
art
them.
and true science.
'Cause
Whoever
there's
does
way
not
too much
know it
broken stuff.
and can no longer wonder, no longer marvel, is as good as dead and his eyes are dimmed. It was the experience of mystery, even if mixed with fear, that engendered religion. A knowledge of the existence of something
so
we
much that's
cannot
wrong
penetrate.
with the
Our perceptions of the profoundest reason and the most radiant beauty, which only in their most primitive forms are accessible to our minds. It is this knowledge and this emotion that constitute true religiosity. In this sense, and in this alone, I am a deeply religious man. I cannot conceive of a God who rewards and punishes his creatures, or as a will of the kind that we experience in ourselves. Neither can I, nor would I, want to conceive of an individual that survives his physical death. Let feeble souls, from fear or absurd egoism, cherish such thoughts. I am satisfied with the mystery of the eternity of life, and with the awareness and a glimpse of the marvelous structure of the existing world, together with the devoted striving to comprehend a portion, be it ever so tiny, of the reason that manifests itself in nature. Albert Einstein, 1931.
Therefore, I thank you, my God, because you make clear to me that there is no other way of approaching you, except that which to all humans, even to the most learned philosophers, seems wholly inaccessible and impossible. For you have shown me that you cannot be seen elsewhere than where impossibility confronts and obstructs me. Oh Lord, you,
Talking about
who are
things
the
being
food of the
obstructed.
mature, have given me courage to do violence to myself. For impossibility coincides with necessity, and I have discovered that the place where you are found unveiled
It's
is
talking about
girded
things being
with the
ridiculously
coincidence
hard,
of
and how
contradictories.
belief
This
in
is
God
the
can
wall
allow
of
someone to
paradise,
push through
and it is there
impossible
in paradise
challenges.
that you reside.
So
The
it's a
wall's
motivational
gate is
speech.
guarded by the highest spirit of reason,
In-
and unless it is
in the
overpowered, the
mountain.
way in will not lie open. Thus, it is on the other side of the coincidence of contradictories that you will be able to be seen, and nowhere on this side. If, therefore, Impossibility is necessity in your sight, O Lord. There is nothing which your sight does not see. Nicholas of Cusa, 1453.
Wait, where is it? Blah.
Two major schools of Zen exist in Japan, the Rinzai and the Soto. Both
And
have the
this
same
log is actually
same
about the
world,
two different sides
unmediated,
of
but
the
their approaches
floor
are
one.
different.
It's about oranges
In the
versus
Soto
greens.
school, the
One of them
emphasis
which
is
is
on
about
quiet contemplation in a seated position without
Right.
a particular focus.
So the greens are about quiet
The method in
contemplation
the Rinzai school, however,
because you sit
is
there
to
and
put
you
the
watch them.
intellect to
And the
work on
orange ones
problems
are
that have
about
no logical
problems that
resolution.
are unsolvable because they
Such
spin.
problems are known as koans, from the Chinese kongan, meaning public announcement. Some are mere questions.
That's
For
my
example,
interpretation of this log.
when your
is that they're
mind
talking
is
about
not dwelling
the
on the
two
dualism of
systems.
good and evil,
I'm supposed to get this thing.
what is your original face before you were born? Others are set in a question and answer form, like, what is the Buddha? Answer, 3 pounds of flax, or the cypress tree in the courtyard, to name but 2 of the classic responses. According to tradition, there are 1,700 such conundrums in the Zen repertoire, and their common aim is to induce a kind of intellectual catastrophe, a sudden jump which lifts the individual out of the domain of words and reason into a direct, non-mediated experience known as satori. Zen differs from other meditative forms, including other schools of Buddhism, in that it does not start from where we are and gradually lead us to a clear view of the true way of the world. It is
how you
not a
spelled the word
progressive
archetype.
system in this respect. The
I'm
sole
assuming that that's the
purpose
word
of
you meant.
studying Zen is to have Zen experiences, sudden moments, like flashes of lightning, when the intellect is short-circuited and there is no longer a barrier
ARCHETYPE.
between the experiencer.
You probably shouldn't
and the
ask this
body.
question in all talk, yes.
David Darling, 1996.
You see, a motif is this. He put his hands together, drew them apart, the 10 fingers open. Then slowly, very
Well,
slowly,
not ignore it, but just don't answer it
together
here.
again. Clasp them, squeeze them tightly, meshing them. That's what one should try to achieve. If one hand is held too high or too low, it won't work. Not a single link should be too slack, leaving a hole through which the emotion, the light, the truth can escape. You must understand that I work on the whole canvas, on everything at once. With one impulse, with undivided faith, I approach all the scattered bits and pieces. Everything we see falls apart, vanishes, doesn't it? Nature is always the same, but nothing in her that appears to us lasts. Our art must replicate the will of her poems, her longing, her elements, the appearance of all her changes. It must give us a taste of her eternity. What is there underneath? Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. Everything, you understand? So I bring together her wandering hands. I take something at right, something at left, here, there, everywhere.
Ah.
Her tones, her colors, her nuances. I set them down, I bring them together. They form lines, they become objects, rocks, trees, without my planning. They take on volume.
Nice.
value. If these volumes, these values, correspond on my canvas, in my sensibility, to the planes, to the spots which are there before our eyes, then my canvas has brought its hands together. It does not waver. The hands have been joined neither too high nor too low. My canvas is true, compact, full. But if there is the slightest distraction, if I fail just a little bit, above all, if I interpret too much one day, if today I am carried away by a theory which runs counter to that of yesterday, if I think while I paint, if I meddle, whoosh, everything goes to pieces. Paul Cézanne, as related by Joachim Gasquet, 1921.
Looked at the astronomical timescale, humanity is at the very beginning of its existence. A newborn babe, with all the unexplored potentialities of babyhood. And until the last few moments, its interest has been centered absolutely and exclusively on its cradle and feeding bottle. It has just become conscious of the vast world existing outside itself and its cradle. It is learning to focus its eyes on distant objects, and its awakening brain is beginning to wonder, in a vague, dreamy way, what they are and what purpose they serve. Its interest in this external world is not much developed yet, so that the main part of its faculties is still engrossed with the cradle and feeding bottle, but a little corner of its brain is beginning
I'm thinking
to...
as to whether or not I can get the monastery obelisk.
James Jeans, 1928.
What am I doing? Right. Screwing up. Gee, whatever revelation you had, I'm sure you can keep it to yourself. I'm not in the mood for being excited about things. Thank you.
The relation between the controller...
Already
and the
distracting
controller
myself
is
sufficiently.
specific. The scientist in the laboratory studying the behavior of a pigeon designs contingencies...
Inexplicably,
and
this run
observes
is
their
harder
effects.
than actual
His
any percent
apparatus
to stay
exerts a
focused.
conspicuous
Probably because I'm
control
just not
over the
super
pigeon,
familiar with the
but
route.
We must not overlook the control exerted by the pigeon.
Just thinking about the monastery obelisk.
The behavior of the pigeon has
monastery
determined the
obelisk,
design
and whether
of
or
the
not
apparatus
I'm close to
and
it
the
if I go
procedures
back
in
to
which it
doing
is
jungle
used.
stuff. No, there was still
Some such
all of
reciprocal
the
control is
monastery
characteristic of all
EPs,
science.
right? All of
As
the
Francis stated,
front wall
nature,
EPs, all
to
of
be
the inner
commanded,
EPs. I need
must
the
be
back
obeyed.
wall. I need
The
green leaf.
scientist who designs a cyclotron is under the control
I've got
of
everything
his
in
study.
jungle main,
The
the front half
behavior
of
which a
jungle,
parent
on the front side
controls
of the
his
wall.
child, either aversively or positively
There's
reinforcing,
no boat EPs
is
on it.
shaped and maintained by the child's
Are there any
responses.
cow EPs?
A psychotherapist changes
Or anything else in the
behavior
monastery
of his
obelisk, or is it
patient
all
in ways
jungle
which have been
monastery?
shaped and maintained by his success
think it
in
is.
changing their behavior. A government or religion prescribes and imposes sanctions selected by their effectiveness in controlling citizen or community. An employer induces his employees to work industriously and carefully with wage systems determined by their effects on behavior. The classroom practices of the teacher are shaped and maintained by the effects on
I don't remember
his
where this
students.
is.
In a very real sense, then, the slave controls the slave driver, the child, the parent, the patient, the therapist, the citizen, the government, the communicant, the priest, the employee, the employer, and the student, the teacher. B.F. Skinner, 1971.
It's all jungle monastery? Okay.
In any case, our 3 days
Potentially
old
could get
infant
that.
cannot be very
I'm trying to think of
confident
how
any
much, because like I
interpretation
really
of
want to
its
get
own
3
universe,
obelisks.
which it
That would
only
be really
discovered
cool.
a minute or two
And
ago.
I could definitely save a bit
We
of
have said
time
it has 70 years of life before it, but in
in
truth, its expectation of life would seem to be
town
more
as
to
well
70,000
by not
years.
doing some of the extra stuff
Maybe
I'm doing.
puzzled,
But I'm just not sure
distressed, and often irritated at the apparent meaninglessness
how I would
and
do that.
incomprehensibility of the world to which it has suddenly wakened
or like
up.
what I would do with that extra time.
But it is still very young. Might travel half the world over before finding another baby as young and inexperienced as itself. It has before it time enough and to spare in which it may understand everything. Sooner or later, the pieces of the puzzle must begin to fit together. Although,
I guess we'll
it
see with
may
this run
reasonably
how
be
much
doubted whether the
time I
whole
really have
picture
to
can
spare.
ever
Like there's just a
be
lot of stuff that
comprehensible
I'm
to
leaving
one
to the post game,
small
which
and
felt
apparently
really
quite
dangerous.
insignificant part of the picture.
And definitely cutting stuff from desert helps.
James
Like, it
Jeans,
makes things less tight
1928.
there. I like that.
God bade me behold the sea, and I saw
I'm
the
definitely
ship
picturing I'm
sinking
gonna
and
drop
the
the
planks
EPs in
floating.
tutorial and get Orchard with that.
Then the planks too
Or
were
get
submerged.
one of the like the dots or something,
God
and then
said
I'll
to
get
me,
Orchard on the
Those who voyage are not saved.
the Stones audio log.
And he
something like
said
that.
to me,
I'm not
those
sure
who,
exactly how I'm going to do
instead
it,
of
but the point is
voyaging,
that I've got a bunch of
cast
time there
themselves into
that I'm
the
not
sea,
using. That's
take
not
a
how this,
risk.
not how this puzzle goes at all.
And he said to me, those who voyage and take no risk shall perish. And he said to me, in taking the risk, there is a part of salvation. and the wave came and lifted those beneath it and overran the shore. And he said to me, "The surface of the sea is a gleam that cannot be reached, and the bottom is a darkness impenetrable. And between the two are great fishes, which are to be
Great
feared."
fishes.
Nefari, circa 970.
I don't care.
What?
I'll see how reasonable it is, but I don't care. Like, it's not a real category
been
yet,
standing
so
there
if
for
I
like an
want to
hour.
add dumb stuff to it, I'll add dumb stuff to it.
And I don't like sandwiches. Have you ever seen me with a sandwich? Why would you think I want a sandwich? No, I need some sleep.
It's okay. We're all working hard.
I just want to read it right. We're going to be hearing this a lot of times. Every little thing matters because it gets so multiplied.
It's good. It's already good.
Thanks. Yeah. But we've kind of picked high goalposts. Every little bit matters. Oh, can you get me a coffee?
Just reading these well, picking the
No,
right
we go over
tips,
this way.
placing them.
Yeah, I don't think it pays to be too neat. You want to leave some traces of us for the intrepid to find.
What do you mean? Any visitor to that island is going to hear
All the
quite a lot of
videos.
us.
Like, all the vault boxes?
Oh yeah, no, sure, but I mean, showing what's happening behind the scenes a little bit to ensure we keep.
Do I have to get the vault boxes or no?
Authenticity. Because if we get too concerned with saying a bunch of wise things,
It's just
in a
all
least
videos is really
personally
boring.
revealing way, then we're
Just
basically
run
putting up a
into-
front, in danger of it becoming a false
Just literally
front.
just run into town? Sure. Yep.
It's a slippery
It's a
slope.
category.
And you know how easily we could slide into pomposity. Nobody wants that, but would we notice if it happened? Or are we too close to the project? Look, I just think if we include some of our interactions, show that we aren't
Super dumb.
these transcendent, perfect beings, that
I still want to run
we get
7
stuck
laser
sometimes.
box,
We get into
the
arguments,
category,
or
at some
get
point.
depressed.
But I
Then
think
at
I'm going to
least
be running
it's
any
not
percent
a
much more
false
relevantly than
front.
that.
At least we're not hiding.
Authenticity is good, yes,
You can find
but you can find human drama anywhere. I mean, we're drowning in it from day to day. We're supposed to be building a quiet environment away from drama, not celebrating it. Look, these are objects of contemplation. These are about focus.
Yeah, it's
and
literally just
clarity.
unlock the 7 laser box. That's it.
Yeah, I know.
Category ends.
And I don't want to change any of that. Just a little added twist, you know, tucked away deep. It doesn't have to be drama, just reality.
Reality. So
It was the like.
we should
It was a category I brought up as an example when we were talking about dumb,
We already have some good stuff.
whether or not,
Like
you know,
that
what makes a
little
category
the other
official
week where
was
you
basically
offered to buy a
the
sandwich.
topic of conversation.
The mic was running, so it's in the archive.
I could do
It's
floating
fine.
while I waited on that.
In context, it's perfect. Because we're not lecturing from on high. These recordings are part of an endeavor built by human beings. And they aspire to truth with a capital T, but we also have to remember that they cannot actually get there. We should be clear to the intrepid that we know this. I think it'll make it better.
It's not what the subtitle
Okay,
said.
sure. We'll at least see how it feels. I mean, on that island, we are going to be in very susceptible states. So, be careful with it.
Okay.
Seems I get to be the pioneer of being mildly embarrassed.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and also, should probably let you know, I'm recording this conversation right now.
No, come on.
No, I'm serious.
Oh.
Pulls out my.
It will make it better. Trust me.
That's end of audio log. Okay, so I did run out of time here, but it was close.
I cannot understand why we idle discussing religion. If we are honest, and scientists have to be, we must admit that religion is a jumble of false assertions with no basis in reality. The very idea of God is a product of the human imagination.
What?
It is quite understandable why
Wait,
primitive people,
okay.
who are so much more exposed to the overpowering forces of nature than we are today, should have personified these
33325.
forces in fear and trembling.
100%.
But nowadays,
Yeah, that was another
when
dumb
we
category
understand
that
so
we had an
many
idea
natural
for.
processes, we have no need for such solutions.
Dumb categories are not in short
I
supply.
can't for the life of me see how the postulate of an almighty God helps us in any way. What I do see is that this assumption leads to such unproductive questions as to why God allows so much misery and injustice, the
Challenge is
exploitation of
hard.
the poor by the rich, and all the other horrors he might have prevented. If religion is still being taught, it is by no means because its ideas still convince us, but simply
I know.
because some of us want to keep the lower classes quiet. Quiet people are much easier to govern than clamorous and dissatisfied ones. They are also much
Maybe.
easier to exploit.
No.
Religion is a kind of opium that allows a nation to lull itself into wishful dreams and so forget the injustices that are being perpetrated against the people. Paul Dirac, 1927, as related by Werner Heisenberg. So, you see what I'm saying here?
Okay.
Yep.
Characterize the way in which
Well, it's about arguing. And it's about being greatly disturbed by
think this is
issues
still the
that are
end.
relatively small. It's not aiming high, and it's not about ultimate truth. Not
Almost.
really. It's mostly about what some stupid people are doing that is wrong compared to what I am doing that is right.
Doesn't work, so we'll trap this.
But Paul Dirac was definitely a true
So we're ending like this then,
physics at
right?
least.
Yeah,
Okay.
but I don't feel that attitude in this piece at all. If a belief is
That's
just
a unique.
formed in opposition to other beliefs,
Good.
it can't be fundamental.
I'm glad that
It
it took
can't
me
be
that long
that.
to do a unique.
But, you know, where he says the thing about natural processes, he starts to outline an actual philosophy.
Interesting. There's something that could stand on its own, that isn't just rejection and opposition. And then he drops it.
That was sketchy as hell.
This isn't the atheist manifesto we need. I'll keep looking.
Okay.
You know, at one point Dirac also wrote this. One could perhaps describe the situation by saying that God is a mathematician of a very high order, and he used very advanced mathematics in constructing the universe. I think he meant God in an Einstein kind of way.
He said that? Same guy.
Same guy. Later in life, though. Yeah, people are strange. Scientists are stranger.
Yes, they are.
It's just the new teapot beeping. It boils fast, but that beep bothers me. Moving on?
So, next I want to raise this problem, which is that I think we don't have enough smart representation from materialist
God damn
atheists, physicalists,
Every
anything in that
time.
neighborhood of ideas. And I've been trying to do something about that, but it's hard. The problem is that most coherent atheists' creeds are focused on defeating some specific idea of God, or are angry about the historical activities of organized religions, rather than, say, from first principles, making a good case for the impossibility of any concept of God, which would be more like what we're after.
I feel like this is backwards. Like, shouldn't I be doing
So many justifications
this
of
segment over
atheism
here, but then I can't
devolve
snipe
into
that. That's the
assertions
issue.
of the implausibility of Bible stories. Someone like Bertrand Russell, a very advanced thinker, but his commentary on religion all seems to be like Why I Am Not a Christian. Very limited in scope. It is way too small compared to the vision of God and the pieces we're juxtaposing.
Can you repeat that last part? You kind of just dropped out a little bit.
Oh, just that it's a very provincial idea of God that's usually advanced in those arguments. Sometimes even a straw
Doing this
man
order
God.
wrong.
And it
Still,
doesn't have much in common with the God visualized by
So many
Cusa
things to
or
fix on these
Spinoza or the great
slips.
Sufis or even Einstein, whoever. So it just doesn't play on the same field.
When people are explicitly pushing materialism, they're usually philosophers or writers, not physicists. Not people who actually do the frontline work
Damn
of
it, dude.
understanding the physical world. With the heavy hitters in physics, it's very hard. It's hard to find good statements that aren't just arguing against straw men. And it's strange because in the modern age, a reasonable portion of working physicists are atheists. Not all by any means,
Purple or red, yeah.
but a reasonable portion. But it's hard to get strong and articulate
Do that
statements
Bodhi
from that
P while waiting for the bridge. Yeah, I'm supposed to.
I mean,
I
the
screwed it up.
closest you get is somebody like
In fact, I'm
Feynman.
supposed to summon the boat
Science
first,
gives us a
because
great
that
degree of
takes
certainty about
longer.
certain things, but
That's why I'm complaining about my
outside those,
splits
it's not
being
a good
bad.
idea
I'm
to
just
tell
doing this in the
ourselves
wrong order.
stories and speculate. It's just best to realize we don't know yet about the bigger questions, etc. But
Yeah, so I'm supposed to summon the boat, then...
Paul Dirac was
No,
at
writing
least
down
a
the
Star
10-second
Trek
time loss. I think that would equate the time I'm losing already.
physicist.
Summon the boat, then solve the rotating bridge,
Dirac
then
was far from a materialist.
get the Bodhi P, then send the map, then come back for the floodgate EP.
Of course. He even mentioned God a few times in the Einstein way.
Wow, this is all so crazy because among scientifically educated people, it's the cultural default, right?
I'm not even
If
sure
you're
I
a
have time to
scientist
finish
or a
Purple
computer
Sandy Piece
programmer
here.
kind of person, atheist materialism is supposed to be the basic belief. If you're not a materialist, you're stupid.
But if we can't find anyone who makes a good case for it,
How does that happen?
Well, it's easy to be convinced of the absurdity of stories in common
Remember to
Christianity.
not walk as
Judaism,
deep
whatever.
into this
So,
area.
if that's your picture of spiritual beliefs, and you have an aversion to digging too hard into your own worldview, which most of us do, then there you go. Anything that seems religious is goofy Bible stories, and materialism is anti-religious. And it's the general impression that smart people are materialists, and I want to be smart, so case closed.
Also, there are all these so-called spiritual people who basically anything try to convince everyone.
In addition to goofy Bible stories, did I forget to mention ghost stories, astrologers, spoonbenders, and all kinds of fraud?
Okay, so
It's a ton of noise.
yeah, I don't
It makes it almost
know
impossible
how
for
long
an
this is gonna
outsider
take
looking
to
in
finish.
to see high-quality thought in the world of spirituality.
but
I
I'm
can even
definitely
generalize
out of time on
spirituality
this
to
audio
one
log.
thing. So it's easy if you're already leaning toward materialism to see these flaky spiritual people, extrapolate that to all spiritual people, and say all that stuff is garbage.
That's how it worked for me. For a while.
Okay, but despite all this,
This is a
there's
lot
large
tighter on this
contingent of
patch
present-day real
because you
scientists
walk up the mountain a
who
lot more
believe in some
slowly.
form of
On latest
atheist
patch, this is
materialism
super
and
free.
whose beliefs have been carefully considered. So we need to ensure we respect that viewpoint.
it's
I
so
remember
frustrating.
that. Oh, sorry.
No, you go.
Oh, I was just gonna say, Carl Sagan has a good piece in Demon Haunted World, where he talks about science as a profound source of spirituality, but he doesn't mean mystical spirituality. He means just pure dedication to truth and the development of a wise perspective on our place
I
in
think
the
this
world.
gives me enough time to get up
It's
to
nice,
mountaintop.
and it's a picture of atheism that isn't hostile or contemptuous.
Yeah, I read that, and what you're talking about is a beautiful piece, and I tried to get it, but Sagan's people want too much money.
Can't we just pay more?
No. It would trigger a bunch of most fake
Especially if I
nation
don't lose,
clauses.
like, an extra
We have to
30
pay
seconds
everyone
at the
a lot
beginning as
more,
well.
and we go broke. So, no Sagan for us. It is a shame, since he was such a great thinker, and eloquent, too.
47. Okay.
Up there,
So the splits
you
are going
go
to say
around
something
every
different from what
hour
I'm
and a
doing
half,
because I'm going to go to jungle
time
here
after time after time.
because
You
I want
wake
to
up
see if I have
usually
time
in
to
the
do that.
mornings, and just
Jungle
the way
to
that the
treehouse
track
to
of your
start
orbits
this, and then go to keep,
you wake up
and
over
just
the
not worry about
Mideast,
the Cory
over
Bodhi
North
piece right
Africa.
now.
As you eat breakfast,
Like I just
you
don't know
look
how to
out the
route this
window
late
as you're
game
going
properly.
past, and there's the Mediterranean area, and Greece, and Rome,
But I need to get
and
this
North
Bodhi
Africa,
P at some
and the
point,
Sinai,
and
the
I
whole area.
don't know when else I'm going to do
And
it.
you realize
I guess
that
the
in
other
one
option would be
glance,
to potentially
that
grab
what
this
you're
Bodhi P
seeing
off
is
of
what was the
this
whole
audio log.
history of man for years.
So like
the
come down
cradle
here and boat
of
summon this?
civilization.
Alright, well,
And you go around down across North Africa and out over the Indian Ocean. And look
right, like
up
during
at
the
that
time that I'm
great
standing around like an
subcontinent
idiot.
of India, pointed down toward you as you go
I don't
past
know.
it. And Ceylon off to the side, Burma, Southeast Asia.
Like I could come over
out
here,
over the
summon the boat, and turn
Philippines,
it around
and
potentially.
up across that monstrous Pacific Ocean. Vast body of water. You've never realized how big
I
that
probably
is
have that
before.
time, and then I could start this boat EP, and then I could do
And you
something like
finally come up across the coast of
railroad.
California.
Like the problem is, it's hard to
And
find
look for
stuff
those
to do
friendly
during
things.
post
Los
game.
Angeles and Phoenix and on
Yeah,
across
no, actually, I
El
could do all the
Paso.
rooftop
And there's
during
Houston.
post game.
There's home.
That would work.
And you look,
Anyway.
and sure enough, there's the Astrodome.
Oh God,
And you
it's in the
identify
way.
with that. You
It's
know?
in the way.
It's an attachment. And down
Thank
across
you.
New Orleans,
One,
and then looking down to the south, and there's the whole peninsula of Florida laid out. And all the hundreds of hours you spent flying across that route, down in the atmosphere, all that is friendly again. And you go out across the Atlantic Ocean and back
Subtitles
across
are messing with my lineups.
and you do it again and again and again. And that identity that you identify with Houston, and then you identify with Los Angeles, and Phoenix, and New Orleans, and everything. And the next thing you recognize in yourself is you're identifying with North Africa. You look forward to that. You anticipate it. And there it is. That whole process begins to shift of what it is you
I'm
identify
gonna
with.
head to Treehouse.
When you go around it in an hour and a half, you
Which
begin
is
to
wrong.
recognize that your identity is with
We're
that
gonna do it
whole
anyways.
thing. And that makes a change. You look down there, and you can't imagine how many borders and boundaries.
Because this
you
is
crossed
super
again
slow. That's why this is
and
wrong.
again.
Because this
You don't
takes
even
so
see it.
long, and I'm not
Like
getting
that
anything
Witness
out of this
scene,
boat ride.
The Mid-East.
So
You
it's
know
much
there
better
are
to
hundreds
run
of
to
people
Quarry
killing each
off
other
of
over
mountain.
some imaginary line that you can't see.
Yeah.
From
Yeah,
where
I
you
think I'm
see it,
supposed to summon the
the
boat
thing is
during
a
that
whole.
waiting time.
And it's so beautiful.
Okay. I can
And you
do that.
wish you could take one from each side in hand and say, look at it from this perspective. Look at that.
What's important?
What's important? And so a little later on, your friend, again those same neighbors, another astronaut, the person next to you goes out to the moon. And now he looks back and sees the Earth
Just like
not as something
2
big
minutes
where he
gone,
can see the
just
beautiful
sitting on this
details,
boat.
but he sees the Earth as a small thing out there. And now that contrast between that bright blue and white Christmas tree ornament and that black sky, that infinite universe, really comes through. The size of it, the significance of it, it becomes both things. It becomes so small and so fragile, and such a precious little
just
spot
gonna
in
ignore
that
the splits
universe
here.
that you can block it out with your
They just
thumb.
mean nothing.
And you realize that on that small spot,
So here I want to
that
finish the
little
bridges
blue
and the bridge
white
EPs.
thing is everything that means anything to you. All of history and music and poetry and art and war and death and birth and
I don't know if
love,
that was faster than
tears,
snapping in. I think
joy,
snapping in is probably the right play.
games, all of it is on that little spot out there that you can cover with your thumb. And you realize that that perspective, that you've changed, that there's something new there. That relationship is no longer what it was. And then you look back on the time when
I
you
don't
were
think there's anything I
outside
can
on that
do
EVA,
while I'm waiting on
and
this,
those
which
few
kinda
moments
stinks,
that you had the
but-
time because the camera malfunctioned, that you had the time to think
I can do
about
that.
what was
Oh, I
happening.
didn't finish this.
And you recall staring out there at the spectacle that went before your eyes. Because now, you're no longer inside something with a window looking out at a picture. But now you're out there, and what you've got around your head is a goldfish bowl. And there are no
If I had to
limits.
redirect that here, I could.
There are no frames. There are no
Maybe.
boundaries. You're really out there, over it, floating, going 25,000 miles per hour, ripping through space, a vacuum, and there's not a sound. There's a silence, the depth of which you've never experienced.
Clearly, you need to watch more.
And that silence contrasts so markedly with the scenery and the speed with which you know you're going. That contrast, the mix of those two things,
I know. I'm
really
messing
comes
with you.
through.
I also don't stream enough for you
And
to
you
have
think
all of the
about
points in the
what
world.
you're experiencing and why. Do you deserve this? This fantastic experience? Have you earned this in some way?
Leave the stream running.
Are you
What's the
separated
big
out
deal?
to be touched by God?
Alright, so
to
that
have
should
some
be the
special
treehouse obelisk.
experience
If I
here
had
that other men cannot
gotten
have? You know the
buoy
answer
during
to
that period of
is
time
no.
that I had.
There's nothing that you've done that deserves that earned that.
And then these
It's not a special thing for
two
you.
should be.
You know very well at
Well,
that
I have to do
moment,
the other one, but
and it comes
oh
through
no,
to you
Treehouse
so
Obelisk has more stuff
powerfully
on it. Excuse me.
that you're the sensing element for man.
So I have to run
You look down
over
and
here
see
and
the
redo the
surface
entire
of that
back
globe
half.
that you've lived on all this time,
Nice.
and you know all those people down there. They are like you. They are you. And somehow you represent them when you are up there. A sensing element. That point out on the end. And that's a humbling feeling. It's a feeling that says you have a responsibility. It's not
a
for
really
yourself.
cool way to end the run. Redoing key.
The eye that doesn't see
Like something that you never
does
would
not
do in a
do
100%
justice
run.
to the body.
Oh, I did screw it up.
That's
no.
why it's
Okay,
there.
we're gonna pretend that I did
That's
it right.
why you're out
Because
there.
I don't have time.
And somehow you recognize that you're a piece of this total life.
This is still not
You're out on
a
that
run that's gonna
forefront
be
and
totally
you have to
what
bring
I'm
that
happy
back
with.
somehow. And that becomes a rather special
I
responsibility.
took an extra step onto
It
the
tells
left
you something
platform.
about your relationship with this thing we call life. And when you come back, there's a difference in that world now. There's a difference in that relationship between you and that planet, and you and all those other forms of life on that planet, because you've had that kind of experience. It's a difference. And it's so
I don't have to reset
precious.
this one. Yes, you do.
And all through this, I've used the word you because it's not me. It's not Dave Scott. It's not
Damn
Dick
it.
Gordon, Pete Conrad, John Glenn. It's you. It's us. It's we. It's life. It's had that experience. And it's not just my problem to integrate. It's not my
Am I
challenge
out
to
of
integrate.
time?
My
Yeah, I did
joy
spend like
to
2
integrate.
minutes on the boat.
It's yours. It's everybody's.
All right, cool.
Russell Schweikart, 1975.
Pretend that I got. No, I have to walk up front here because I have to do this. I don't have enough time to do any of them properly. 1, 2, 3, or 4. I'm able to do 4. Well, I guess 4 has 2 ways, so I do one of the ways properly, and I have enough time to get up here and get the first half, which means I don't have to make a revisit, which is good. But yeah, there's definitely not enough time to do any of the fast solves for 1, 2, or 3. I'm on a pretty tight timer during Shadows. I don't know if you were here during that, but it's serious. In fact, most of the early game is pretty serious. Okay, so that should be 1 obelisk. Yes. And then there's other stuff that I would have to do over here, but because I already did it, it's not a problem. Or I'm not doing it. There's additional boat EPs I would need to do in Quarry that I'm not doing. Which is fine. So I have to do Orchard, and then Windmill. And again, in theory, I can do Orchard earlier if I skip the tutorial EPs, which I think I'm going to do. Because I don't actually need to do the tutorial EPs. They don't do anything for me. I'm not going for the Keep Obelisk. I will have to figure out what I'm going to do about the extra... what I'm doing about the extra stuff I'm currently getting in town. 1 more AL. What? Yeah, there is. Yeah. It's in theater. That's why I had to open the theater shortcut. It's supposed to be... I'm supposed to be able to get there on this audio log. And I could have, of course, if I wasn't doing a bunch of EP cleanup. Yeah, I learned why that was a bad idea.
I thought my voyage had come to its end.
I think I have time to actually
At the
do all of
last
this
limit of
on that
my
audio
power.
log. We'll see, though.
That the path before me was closed, the provisions exhausted.
It's a really
And the
good audio
time
log to end
come
on,
to take
honestly.
shelter in silent
I'm
obscurity.
pretty happy with this.
But
the
I
way the route
find
ends.
thy will knows no end. And when words die out on the tongue, new melodies
It's a
break
very
forth
it's a
from
very
the heart.
final audio log.
And where old tracks are lost, new country is revealed with its wonders.
Okay, maybe not quite. I don't have quite that much time to kill. If I did Orange Crate earlier, I would have that time.
So it's
5:23. All right, that is another valid run.